All right, Mike. Monday recording Falcon Forward. It's been a great weekend. We had some good weather out here, hanging out with family. My son had his first basketball practice on Saturday with his team, so life was going good. And I was sitting in the bleachers, scrolling Twitter, and I saw that. So I think it's the Vikings. They have a new quarterback, Kyler Murray, right? I don't know if you follow the Vikings a little bit, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
Long time Vikings fan and
yeah.
all that goes with being a longtime Vikings fan.
So I don't follow football. I'm very bad at following sports. Like it's probably the thing that sets me back in sales the most is that I can't talk sports because it's common knowledge, right? You can strike up a conversation about anything with anybody when it comes to sports. But I laughed because they had a picture of Peter Dinklage with Cal Murray, and Peter Dinklage was like a full foot taller than Cal Murray. So just thought that was kind of funny. I can understand the Peter Dinklage reference, I guess, but anyways, congratulations on your Vikings with their new quarterback there. So
Yeah, I
um,
would say as a Vikings fan, maybe 5 years ago, 8 years ago, even in saying, not saying Kyler Murray's career back then, but if we had had the Kyler Murray of today, like 8 years ago, I think people
yep,
would have been very excited.
yep,
But we're literally coming off not a Super Bowl loss for the Vikings, but uh, a Super Bowl loss for the Vikings' former quarterback. So, losing Sam Darnold, watching him then go to the Super Bowl, and then watching our, quarterback that we were all in on not meet expectations. I think, like with the Kyler Murray news, everyone's like, okay, like how can they find a way to screw this one up now?
right, yeah,
On it. So again, that comes
yeah,
with being a longtime Vikings fan, but
yeah,
we'll have optimism in the beginning of the season. We'll see some flashes of greatness, and
yeah.
then we all know how the story will end, unfortunately.
I mean, look, it's and again, my mom hilarious, but she bandwagoned with the Patriots so long for a long time. Like, oh, great, Patriots are going. We got Tom Brady and like what, and I think it's because she thought that Tom Brady was like a good looking guy, and he is, right? But I'm like, mom, like, come on, like, what are we talking about here? Like the Patriots because of Tom Brady? That's silly. But I mean, if your team doesn't perform terribly every now and then, like, I don't think you have a real team. So, anyways,
No, yeah, that I often thought, like, what if you were born like in New England and like you're
yeah.
just, well, that's all we do. Aren't you supposed to win Super Bowl championships? That's what it feels like
100%.
every year.
Yeah,
How
yeah,
lucky. Yeah.
exactly. Great. Well, you guys didn't come here for the sports talk. You came here to, hear about Falcon West, what we got on our plate this week's. Actually very excited. So Devin is starting today. So I actually sent him a text, kind of like, hey, can't wait to meet you later today. He's coming on, and I think the thing that stands out to me with Devin is so he came through our academy. He was referred to work with us, but he's going to be the very first going through our broker training program. So I think we sort of had this, we called it Academy 2.0 for the longest time, which is taking interns and then, how do we transfer them into a brokerage in a methodical way? And I think the epitome of what we're doing with the broker training program is where can we support our team internally while we're training. So we've talked about this at length, but I wanted to get your side or how you're currently viewing our broker training and how we're going to be, I guess, establishing that in maybe a more thoughtful manner going forward. So I'll let you talk on that for a few and welcome, Devin.
All right. And we'll see if our more sports minded viewers make the connection of, because it really is kind of coming down to like what the Vikings are doing. Like, do you draft someone who has no experience in the NFL and try and bring them along? Or do you bring in a free agent, someone who has experience, or in our case, take someone who's never worked in the insurance industry? Or do you try and get someone who's worked before elsewhere? And I think the appeal of having someone with no experience is then you can really focus on who is the individual and who is this person and what skills do they bring that aren't insurance skills, but have all the other attributes that you want to see in a successful account manager, a successful insurance producer. And so that's where, we get excited, and that's where we build
Yeah.
our academy program to just expose more people to insurance, to just say, hey, here's something that we want you to consider. And at the same time, we get to evaluate that person while they're going through the program and be like, ooh, this is someone that, has some unique skills or has, what we want to see, great qualities. Um, and so Devin is like you said, went through our program. He was referred to us, made things happen while going through the program. And that we are excited about, hey, can we work with you now going forward on a full-time basis?
Yeah, he got his license already too. Like he just committed to, hey, I'm gonna go get all this done before I even begin, which is awesome.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the kind of things that will set them up well for success in insurance. So,
Yeah.
and then, what we've learned is we can't just take a person with all these great skills and just sit them down and not that we did this before, but
Yeah.
we had a program, but we just didn't have it as well defined as we now have it. Uh, and so, and what we learned in with people who had gone through this previously, and we didn't have that formal support program in place for them when they started, was that became a big ask of our staff, because they would do what we asked them to do, which is find a prospect, find someone who's interested in buying insurance, and then just imagine, they would come very excitedly, be like, "Hey, I got someone. Like, I can do this. I got someone who wants to buy insurance from me." And they'd come to us though, and they'd be like, "Now what do I do?"
Yeah.
Or they go to our account managers and be like, "Hey, someone wants to, buy insurance from us. Now what do we do?" And our account managers were like, "Holy cow! Like, you keep growing your company. You keep asking me to do these more things. You keep, having more clients come on my desk, and now all of a sudden I have to service or train the new people." So we realized that, wow, that's not it's not fair, and it certainly wasn't our intent to do that. But recognizing that what we're doing with Devin, which again we're very excited about, is we now have a formal test book that we're going to train him on. What are the modules? And he's for sure not going to become an expert in any of these modules, but at least he'll know that, okay, when someone asks him for a homeowner's policy or a business owner's policy, general liability, work comp, what does he do then? Like, what happens next when you have someone who's interested? So,
Sure.
yeah, very excited for him starting up this morning.
Yeah. And I think I've told this story many, many times, at least I have to, uh, you know, people that have joined us or, even sort of like formulating or building out the processes. So, when I started Falcon West 3 years ago, I remember I got a phone call. I forget the guy's name, but I know he was buying a home in Minnesota. It's a call forwarded to me, and he's like, "Yeah, I want to buy. I'm buying a house. I'm closing on this day. I need to get insurance." And I took down his name, took down his number and his address. Figured that's what you need, right? Like, great. So put it in an email, sent, and they're like, "Hey, we need like way more information." And they're like, go talk. So I talked to, three brokers internally and like looked at their lists. And this was before, AI could do anything. So I remember literally printing them out, tabulating everything, finding out the questions, and then calling the guy up. And it was probably, I mean, a home application, if you want to do it right, because we're not, the carriers we have generally cater towards, nicer homes, bigger homes, private client sort of, and that's what we were talking with here. There's more questions, there's more things to know, and you didn't have anything in place, and so there's all these things you got to cover. And at least now my thought process here with Devin is like, okay, look, we have that list now established. We can say, hey, this is what you need. Here's how, so that way our, account managers aren't bombarded with, questions like that, where it's like, hey, yeah, maybe this is a nice kid on the other end that's learning how to do insurance, but it takes time to, stop what you're doing, reply to that email, get out of your rhythm, get out of your groove, go handle that. So I think we're trying to just get ahead of maybe a lot of those smaller questions or learn what accords are or how to fill out a supplemental application. And all those things kind of become, I think, a little easier. And then also, what can we take off of off of their plate at the same time for our account
Exactly.
managers? So, we do policy reviews and going through, uh, how is that done? And we kind of tore that apart and said, okay, we have the tool and we have the program for it now, but what's the actual process? Well, that could be time consuming, right? So, having the right people that need to learn how to do that anyways, to go download policies, review them. I mean, if you could do 100 of those in a week, it takes things off of their plate and obviously helps everyone else, or attaching documents, all those things. So, really trying to see where we can, not only train, but also, enhance, I think, the lives of the people that are working with us. So, um,
Yeah, 100%
anyways,
on that.
we see what you guys do, and Devin, be ready to learn some of the granular items that are coming your way.
Yeah. And again, just mentioned how much over the 3 years we've progressed on that front. Got it. So full credit to yourself, to Jason and to Myra for really kind of stepping back and looking at, okay, when we do bring someone on, getting past just the getting their W-2 form or
Right.
what, how can we really support these folks? And again, it's not that we weren't doing this before,
Yeah.
but we didn't have it well documented or didn't have kind of that process. So
Correct.
super excited with the amount of time we've put in to develop that process, and then to have Devin go through it. And without question, we'll learn things as we go through it, and we'll make modifications.
Oh,
But the idea is leaving it better for the next person, so that when the next individual comes through this, that will be a little bit better. And then also to your point, and really bears repeating, is how can we help take stuff off of our account managers' busy desks? So this, and then at the same time, it's a great learning experience for these people like Devin going through the broker training program. Is
Yep.
there's things he can do that will help his development, help his learning, that will offload off of their desk, and then at the end, it's great for everyone. So,
Yep.
very excited about it. Big week for us.
Oh yeah.
And
It's gonna be a busy one.
fun to see all the work that goes behind the scenes. Now it's showtime.
Love it. Great. Well, we'll pivot over to some news. So AM Best, another thing that I knew very little about, but now that I get their magazine every month, I know a little more about it. No. So AM Best, they sent out their special report this morning, noting that for the first time in several years, rating upgrades outnumbered downgrades among U.S. property and casualty carriers in 2025. So so more upgrades versus downgrades. Now, out of the downgrades, they were concentrated in homeowners and personal auto. I guess there's more, cat losses there, severe secondary perils, and higher reinsurance costs on the homeowners and personal. So I thought that was interesting, because I guess, and obviously AM Best is looking at the United States as a whole, but in California, we have sort of this, I think, a little more optimism. Maybe it's because we're one of the most challenging states when it comes to personal lines, just because of things I think outside of the broker control. Obviously it's more with fair plan and how all those dynamics work together, but I kind of wanted to get your take on the AM Best side. And if you're unfamiliar with AM Best, first time listening to this, they basically rank carriers with a like a letter grade, right? So A, B, C. We write with A and above, and I think there's also like a financial component too, where they say this is how much they have in reserves, but you might be able to speak a little more intelligently to the dynamics there.
Sure. Yeah, so you're absolutely right. AM Best will look at the financial strength of insurance companies, and they'll look at, effectively what are their revenues, what are their expenses, what are their loss ratios, what are their reserves, and then they'll assign a rating from it. And I think the top rating, I believe, is A++. Companies like Travelers and Chubb enjoy that. And then you really wouldn't want to be with anyone who's B+ or lower. So that basically means that there's a good chance they're going to go out of business. And a lot of companies, it becomes kind of a death spiral almost, that if they lose an A- ranking and go down to a B, it's going to be in violation of a lot of their clients' covenants that say that they can't be with a B+ carrier. So they're going to see a wave of clients running towards the exit. And it's just the insurance departments are looking very closely at those companies that would be B+ or lower rated. So kind of great inflation that I've seen with our kids' schools that everyone gets now these days.
Right.
Holds true with insurance companies as well. What I don't like about the rating agencies is, call me cynical, skeptic, whatever, is you have to pay to be rated by AM Best. So effectively, people are insurance companies, they're pay money. It's a fee. It's a service that they provide. And I think, again, that's why you see this grade inflation per se, because if you were getting a crappy rating, guess what? I'm not going to hire you to go do it. And so there are some companies like Demotech that have tried to make an incursion into the marketplace, but AM Best would still be considered the king on it. So the news story that came out recently was that the number of upgrades exceed the number of downgrades that are happening. I think it'd be interesting to study this a little bit further to see, would this be the time to start selling insurance stocks? Because it's almost like instead of it being so much like a canary in the coal mine, like, hey, we're warning about things that go wrong. It's when everyone's saying that everything's great is when usually something bad happens.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to see, okay, when the last time they had this, where the number of upgrades, number of downgrades, did that precede something traumatic in the industry on it? Because, and again, kind of to recap, that would be when everyone's saying everything's so good, so good, so good. That means people are taking their eye off the ball, and things are not going to be good.
There's a scene in one of my favorite movies of all time is The Big Short, and mostly because Steve
Yep.
Carell's in it, and I love his personality. He's just this grumpy guy going around telling everyone that the world's ending, and
Yeah.
I can relate to that in a lot of weird ways, I guess. But there's a scene where they sit down with Moody's, and they're talking to the Moody's rep, and she's like, "Hey, look, if we don't give AAA, ratings to the banks, then they're simply, they're going to go to the competitors, and then we lose business, and it becomes a problem and all that." And I don't think it's the same with AM Best here. I think that that's a whole different story. But one question I have is, like, when you look at E&S markets, right? Are they rated by AM Best? Because I don't see that as common or as often. Like, you have to do a lot more research to actually find who's underlying and what it actually looks like.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. And the Moody's example is a bit more stark because Moody's had two divisions. They had their investment banking piece and they had their rating piece, and they were fighting. And if they didn't give a top rating for these
Yeah.
bonds that were contained a lot of garbage, that were all getting AAA ratings.
Right.
And it's similar to like just like the stock analysts, stock prices, you can have companies that are getting absolutely tanked, and a bunch of analysts will have buy ratings on them.
Right.
Because again, if you don't give buy ratings, then they're not going to do any investment banking with your company. So you kind of have that same conflict. And same thing with AM Best, when everyone is an A rated, excellent or higher, until they're not. And then all of a sudden, like a company will come out with some terrible news that they, an accounting scandal or something like that. And then,
Sure.
they'll have been A plus rated. And then all of a sudden after the news comes out, the investor will come out and say, they're now B plus. Like it's,
Sure.
um, it's an imperfect system, I guess. You
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
have it. Your question specifically, though, like on the E&S markets, yes, they will be AM Best rated. You don't have to be rated. So there are like I mentioned, like in Florida, where it's a bunch
Yeah.
of smaller regional carriers that were just said, you know what, we're not going to pay AM Best fees.
Sure.
So they went to this other company, Demotech, that in Florida would have a very large percentage of the ratings because companies are just like, oh, we're not going to play the game
Okay.
here and pay those types of fees. So yes, E&S, because a lot of times E&S is just a different writing company
Sure.
that is owned by whatever major insurance company you're
Right.
with.
Yeah, I've always had to, like, okay, who's the actual carrier? And
Yep.
and funny enough, like, our account managers had a discussion about this, because, like, it's sometimes really difficult to find out, like, where it's coming from. But thank goodness, like, now with AI, you can almost put it in. And Perplexity, I love Perplexity. It doesn't get enough credit for research, but I mean, you can find out, all 10 carriers that are backing this one. It's pretty fascinating how
Yep.
it all goes together.
Yep.
Uh, Very complicated world we're in, but
Yep.
perfect. Well, so the next thing that I wanted to talk about was, the theme of our podcast, so to speak. And we don't really have a theme, but building a remote insurance brokerage, and 45 years in the making, right? Um, and sitting in the seat of, how do you lead a company? And I think this kind of trickles down pretty quickly too, because we're a very flat organization, right? We don't have a lot of layers. Just kind of, personally, I love how it works and keeps things simple. This is something that I do on a regular basis. Is, I'll sit down and I'll think, okay, what do I want to keep doing every day? What do I want to start doing that I'm not doing? And what do we need to stop doing, right? Because I think it's so easy for us to get caught up with, okay, well, this is what I used to do, or this is what a competitor's doing. And sort of kind of like that, like a squirrel, right? You kind of keep moving from one thing to another, and being able to stay focused. There's this new thing that I've kind of noticed, is that a lot of companies that are out there, right? So let's just take Google, for example, or TikTok. I think TikTok is a stronger, maybe more resonant example here. But if you start posting on TikTok, right, which we started doing for local energy over a year ago, and that kind of got us started and gave us an idea of, like, okay, maybe there's something here. But to keep yourself on that platform and to rank, you have to post every single day. And then whenever you post, you have to go in and you have to spend time on it and you have to comment and be just to grow, right? So we got to, 5 or 6 thousand followers, and I finally got to a point where I'm like, look, I can't, even if it is, me sitting on the couch at night, I don't want to be on this. I don't want to be doing this anymore. And so, yeah, do we lose TikTok status now? Okay, great. Whatever. I don't care because you kind of get burned out. But if you scale that back even, and I'm looking at now, like I'm looking at Google, right? So for us, and it's sort of this thing where, are we do we want to play that game, or do we want to play our own game, right? Like going back to last week's conversation, not advertising the yellow pages. If you went to a company today and you said, "Hey, don't advertise," right? I mean, they'd almost look at you like you're crazy, right? And I think some companies need to because they're getting started, or that's the game they play. Like if you're in construction, I think you need to be on Google. Like that's how people are going to pick up the phone and know you're the best. All that. There's reasons for it. But I think every industry is different. And so what I'm thinking about now is like, do we want to play the Google game? Do we want to have to post on Google Business, and do we want to have to go get reviews and all that? Because a lot of our clients don't leave reviews. Why? Because they're business owners, or they're, higher net worth typically, and that's just not what they do, right? Like they're not on the internet. They're living life and they're building businesses and companies. So I wanted, like, I don't really know what my question is there. I guess I'm just sort of presenting this conundrum I have of choosing like what matters and what doesn't as you're building something, and and where that fits with Falcon West too. Because if I was doing another business, I might very well not be thinking about that. It's just you need to do it, right? But what are your thoughts on that with Falcon West? Like, I don't know. It's a tough one.
Yeah. No, good questions. And where I think where you have to start with is, who are our clients and what do they value? And so our clients, by and large, are successful business owners who value an independent agent that is telling them, here are my risks. Here are ways to mitigate those risks, either through insurance or changing their practices or processes. And here's the cost of that. And then following that up with great customer service, so that when they have a certificate request or a billing request, or just customer contract review, that we're give prompt, accurate, and good guidance to those clients. So and then the same holds true on the personal line side. So the home, auto, and umbrella side. Again, who are our clients? They would be either those business owners that we talked about, insuring their personal exposures, or other successful families that have stuff, have worked hard to get stuff, and need someone to tell them, here's how you properly set up your coverage. And then when something bad happens, here's the ability for us to guide them on, your teenage kid got in a car accident. I'm going to have multiple responses on what to do next, depending on, was there another person in the car? Was the car that hit occupied, or was it parked? So all those variables, and again, anyone can become an expert in this, but the most successful people that we work with don't want to become experts, but they want to have someone that they can trust, that they can call on. So if you start with that, that's what we do. That's our blocking and tackling. That's what we do day in and day out. What can we do then from a marketing perspective that will make more people that value those things aware of what we offer?
Yeah.
And a great example when we're talking to someone is, if we're sitting in a restaurant, meeting with a new person, everyone in that person buys insurance, but there's probably one or two people in that restaurant that would be our target clients that would be good for us to work with. And not that the other people are bad, but it's just,
Yeah.
it's not, they don't value what we
There's alignment there.
So why should we then spend time, money, effort in advertising ourselves to someone who doesn't value, it isn't looking for our product? Again,
Right.
it's not bad. That's just how they look at things.
Yeah.
So all of our then tools need to be, make sure that we are reaching that target audience. So you mentioned like the Yellow Pages ad, again, I'm going to date myself here, but we used to get phone calls from, hey, we can do a full page ad for you for, back cover ad, blah, 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 blah. And for a lot of businesses, that would be great. If you're, let's say a plumber, emergency plumber, you want your name far and wide so that when the off time, whenever it happens, someone needs a plumber,
Yeah.
very easily found by them. That's not how our clients buy insurance. So to advertise in the same ways that that plumber would get business. Again, they have a successful business. We insure a lot of those folks. That's great. So, but that's not our model. So we wouldn't. It doesn't make sense for us to use the same methods
Yeah.
to reach our clients. And if you bring that into kind of today's age, like our clients aren't scroll. They could very well be scrolling on TikTok.
Sure.
But they're not scrolling on TikTok looking for their next insurance broker.
Right.
That's just not how they're doing that. So
Yeah.
why would we then expend effort in doing that?
Yeah.
So I guess that's my thoughts on the topic, and
Yep.
we could delve into what are good ways that we can reach our clients that we have done and will continue to do. But Mike's thoughts on
Yeah.
marketing for Falcon West.
No, I mean, that hits it perfectly. I think it's hard when you're, and if you're coming into this as a new broker, you kind of want to go get lead, like you want to talk to everybody, like, because you think that, again, to your point, everyone needs insurance, right? I mean, I'm looking out my window right now and there's 20 houses that I can see from here, right? That are my neighbors, and all of them have insurance, right? Or they have renters insurance. So you almost would be like, I'm just going to go knock on every door. And it's like, this isn't probably not the right fit for Falcon West necessarily, right? But you can go find, and there's ways to do that the right way. And I think that's another topic, and I'm actually I'll put a pin in that one. But I think what I'm kind of getting after here with the whole Google piece too is like privacy, right? So we have, I used to be such a huge proponent of like, so still am, I think, but it's become harder and harder with AI, right? To sort of put up this like guard of information, because it seems like every website we go on, people are tracking you. Then I get an ad the next day, or just talking around my phone. Even I feel like I gotta turn my phone off so it's not listening to me, right? That's a very real thing.
Yep.
But on our website, like, I want to propagate good somehow, right? As much as possible, right? So if that means that maybe we're not tracking people on our website and we're turning those off because we want to respect that, and they're not going to get tracked later and tagged in ads on Instagram or whatever, I feel like that's almost the approach that I want to take, but I'm not like fully committed to it yet. So it's kind of like it's on my kind of stop doing, but I'm not quite there yet. And a lot of people may disagree with me if you're listening to this, and we're not going to, it doesn't change business for us. It's simply a different way of, I think, doing, because I don't want to be on the hamster wheel of having to, post an article and get Google, and all that stuff is so much work to maintain long term, and I don't think it resonates with our client base. So, anyways, I guess I'm getting a little personal there on kind of my thought process
So
on
it
things.
partly agree. Who would be people that would be on our website?
Yeah.
Be someone that we've met recently. We were introduced. Maybe we had a good call, and they were like, "Wow, I like the call I had with that
Right.
representative from Falcon West. Let me go find out a little bit more." So I view our website as a brochure for those people.
Yeah. Yeah.
So do we need to track them and start popping things up? No.
No.
And then also for future employees, that when we
Yeah.
interviewing someone or someone's interested, where can I learn more about the company? Yes, again, we're not, for a lot of companies, that tracking that you're looking for a new car or something like that, and you spend a little time on a website. Now you start seeing things pop up. I can see that would be an effective way of doing it. But
Sure.
again, getting back to that earlier part, like who is our target client,
Yeah.
target prospect? In my opinion, not an effective way to
Yeah.
reach those folks.
Well, been great feedback from everybody, account managers, brokers I talked to over the past couple of weeks about this, and refining things and going through it. So, anyways, we'll see some changes on that. Not like nothing you'll notice, right? But maybe things that are happening on the back end that we can stop doing, that just aren't necessary to support the business. So, awesome. Well, Mike, our 101 topic for today is on solar panels. So home solar. I was talking to Matthew Portillo about this, and because one question he has on his home questions he has for clients is like, how many home solar panels do you have? And he'll look up the address and you can look at it and see if there's anything, or maybe it's a recent install. But how do we insure these? And I guess, because it does affect the value of the home, right? So if you're getting a $30,000 system installed, you need to make sure that you're increasing your limits. So walk us through that a little bit.
Yeah. So absolutely increases the value of the home. In Well, twofold. Yes, it could increase the value of the home. But when to be kind of technical on things, what we really care about is what is the cost to replace that home, which sometimes it correlates with the values and sometimes it can be greatly divergent on that. But if you're specifically thinking of what would it cost to replace the home, which is what insurance is most concerned with, then yes, adding solar, adding really any sort of upgrade. When you're doing a like for like replacement, like we replaced our hardwood floors with new hardwood floors. That could bump up the value. That doesn't change the replacement cost on it. It's still, if you had a fire, you'd still have to replace hardwood floors. Just now there's on it. And then insurance, it's important to note, is based on replacement cost value. So not what you paid for something, not what it cost you to build 10 years ago. What would it cost to rebuild today? So when you add something net new, like solar panels, then yes, you absolutely have to increase that home. And, you know, solar is an interesting thing because for a lot of projects that people do, like if a client calls up and says, hey, I'm remodeling my home and we need to change this. But I would venture a guess that very few clients would think to call up their broker and say, hey, I added solar to my home on it. So it's a question we ask of folks, part of their account renewal process. But it's not something that I think would be first in mind in people volunteering that information.
Yeah, yeah. And then like when it comes to like, battery backups, right? So that's a very common thing, test the power wall and all that. Um, how would a carrier look at that? Because we're looking at, and again, I did some research on this, but I think if it's hardwired into the home, it becomes part of the replacement cost of the home versus personal property, right? And I can't imagine that you wouldn't be hardwiring that in, but is that correct?
Yep. Yeah,
Okay.
so you're absolutely right. Just like a battery backup is really no different than a solar panel. It's just a different function. One draws
Yeah, yeah.
the in, the other stores it.
Stores it, yeah.
So
Okay.
the cost of those power walls or battery backup systems would definitely be a part of the kind of home dwelling replacement cost value,
Yeah.
for sure.
One other point about the solar that we were talking about was the installation piece. And so, obviously there's a contractor that's going to come out. Sometimes they got to take your roof off and put your roof on. I mean, I've been through this before, right? So, but maybe you have some insight on that.
Yeah. And really kind of two things to think about is for some of, especially clients with larger homes, if it's a detached garage that you have or a detached structure. So on a home policy, you're going to have your dwelling and then you're going to have your other structures. And other structures is usually a percentage of that dwelling amount, in 10%, 20%, whatever that may be. If someone is installing the solar panels on a garage or the power wall on the garage as well, just so it's not as prominent on the main home, you got to make sure that your other structures limit is an adequate number to have on that. Like,
Okay.
not just saying, hey, did you install solar, but then also where did you install the solar? And then we'll also see clients install solar off, like if you have a hill or something like that, it's not necessarily on the home itself.
Yeah.
And again, that would fall under your other structures. So
Okay.
if you had a separate casita or garage, and then you set up a separate solar wall or solar almost mini farm elsewhere, just making
Yeah.
sure that you have adequate coverage to replace all that if it was needed. And then bringing up the installation piece. So this is something that we rarely see people do proactively. But it is just of the utmost importance, is anytime you have a contractor working at your house, you want to have a contract with that contractor. So you want a written piece of paper that specifies who's doing what. And then also of kind of equal importance is specifying if something bad happens, who's going to respond. And let's just use an example of one of that contractor's employees gets injured, or more commonly, a subcontractor that your general that you've hired gets injured. You want to make sure that there's language in that contract that says there's going to be indemnity, meaning that the contractor that you've hired agrees to be that first wall of defense if you as homeowner get sued because someone got injured on your property. You want to make sure that there's something called a waiver of subrogation. That means that if the workers' comp policy pays, that carrier is prohibited from coming back against you, the homeowner, on it, which they'll try to do. And that you want to make sure that there's additional insured protection that says that you are effectively covered under that contractor's policy with equal rights under that policy if something bad happens. So
Yeah.
you would still have your own insurance, but that would all be a secondary piece that would only get attacked if you effectively blow through the first piece. So super important to have all that in there. If it's not written down, you don't have it. If it's not specified in the contract, you don't have it. If you're not asking your contractor for this, you don't have it. I have looked at hundreds of contracts, and I don't think it's ever been volunteered in one of them. However, it's something very common that if you ask, they'll be able to provide. If you don't ask, you're not going to get it.
Gotcha.
Very common in the commercial world that we see this wording. It hasn't made its way down because you have, business owner, and then you have a homeowner. And typically, the business owner is a bit more sophisticated in their contract knowledge than that homeowner. But it can be the difference between, millions of dollars of payments against you versus not. So super important.
Yeah. Gotcha. Man, yeah, there's a lot there to unpack, and so what we started to do actually, and this is really valuable, is if you're listening to this podcast and you want to read what is being said here, we're converting these into articles that go on our website. So you can go on there, and if it's already something that we have in our website intranet, so for our employees, you can go into a coverage knowledge section that we're building out and find that here too. But we just want to talk about some of the more relevant topics that come up often and sort of the nuances to them and when it arises. So Mike, thank you so much for going through that with me. It's always, anytime I can take notes and learn, it's great. So anyways, we'll move to close here. We have a good week, busy week ahead. I know we have another call. Actually, we're going to jump on here in 2 minutes. So thank you guys for listening, and we'll be here next week.
Thank you very much, Peter. Great stuff.
Thanks, Mike. Falcon Forward does not provide financial or insurance advice. The following disclosure is available at falconwest.com/privacy-policy. All information provided is for educational and entertainment purposes only. We encourage you to do your own research and consult with qualified professionals regarding your specific needs. If you have specific questions about your property and casualty insurance, our contact information can be found at falconwest.com. This content expresses the views of Falcon West Insurance Brokers, Inc. as of the date indicated, and such views are subject to change without notice. Falcon West has no duty or obligation to update the information contained herein. Further, Falcon West makes no representation, and it should not be assumed that past insurance market conditions, coverage terms, or pricing are an indication of future results. This information is being made available for educational purposes only and should not be used as a substitute for insurance advice tailored to your specific circumstances. The information contained herein does not constitute and should not be construed as an offering of insurance coverage, a guarantee of coverage terms, or a binding quote in any jurisdiction. Certain information contained herein concerning insurance markets, industry trends, and risk performance is based on or derived from information provided by independent third-party sources. Falcon West Insurance Brokers, Inc. believes that the sources from which such information has been obtained are reliable. However, it cannot guarantee the accuracy of such information and has not independently verified the accuracy or completeness of such information or the assumptions on which information is based. This content, including the information contained herein, may not be copied, reproduced, republished, or posted in whole or in part in any form without the prior written consent of Falcon West Insurance Brokers, Inc. To obtain our property and casualty license information, please visit falconwest.com. Our California license number is 0616640.